Okay, so we are ready for Lesson 5. This is David and Saul. And I'm going to read the first part of 1 Samuel chapter 16 here, the first 13 verses. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons." And Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me." But the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you, and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you." So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem, and the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, "Do you come peaceably?" And he said, "Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was when they came that he looked at Eliab and said, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before him." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all the young men here?" Then he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes here." So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for he is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel arose and went to Ramah. So if we look at our questions here on this lesson, the first question is, what had the reign of Saul demonstrated about the kind of man the king of Israel would need to be?
He's not judging the outside of the person, but the inside.
Right, he's judging based on the inside, not on the outside, right? That's true. And he's looking for someone, what do we keep saying about Saul? He's disobedient. What, Eileen?
No, go ahead.
Okay, he's disobedient. He's wanting to do his own thing, right? He wants to do everything his way. And that's not what God's looking for. God's looking for someone who will listen and follow him, right? And do what he says to do. And, if he's supposed to go destroy these people utterly, then that's what should happen, not bring back whatever, like Saul did. We have multiple examples of where Saul did his own thing, so. All right, so he's looking for someone who will really listen and obey and follow him. Question number 2, who was David's father? Jesse, that's right. Now, where was he from? Right, he's from Bethlehem, and that was what was that? Ephraimite territory in the past was another old phrase for it, but the same area. But Bethlehem is what I think we're really looking for. And then, what is the tribal territory that he's in? Yeah, Judah, right? Because he's from the tribe of Judah. So, Okay. So then they say, this is phrased weirdly. What are these facts important in light of Genesis 49:10? I think they really probably meant why, but anyway, nonetheless, let me read Genesis 49, verse 10 for you. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the people.
Christ came from Judah.
Right? Later, Christ comes from Judah, right? And that's an important.
I put down coming of the Messiah in Shiloh. I'm taking Shiloh is another term for Messiah.
Shiloh. All right. I don't have a good definition for that other than that's the place where they put the tabernacle. So I'm not sure if that's referring to until the Messiah comes, because even Jesus is from Judah. So I'm not sure about that. I took that as, I really didn't think about the Shiloh part, honestly. So do you have...
If I remember right, Shiloh means something along the lines of the peaceful one or the one who comes in peace. And I think it's referring to Jesus.
Okay, so it is referring to the Lord. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact translation is.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have looked at that, but that did not occur to me to look at that. So sometimes that's the way it goes, I guess. But so yeah, you're probably correct. It sounds like it is referring to the Lord, but I will have to look at that.
Well, my Bible dictionary tells me that it's a sacred city of Palestine between Bethlehem and Shechem in the tribe of Ephraim. It goes on to say that the tabernacle was here during the greater part of the period of the Judges.
Mm-hmm.
The place continued to be the religious center of the nation until after the loss of the ark in the disastrous battle of Ebenezer.
Well, that's what I thought of. I thought of Shiloh as a place rather than being...
And it also has another title for Shiloh. The name is found in the difficult passage, Genesis 49:10, which you read, which has been sometimes regarded as a prophecy of the coming of Messiah.
Okay. Well, that would still fall in line with what you were saying before then. So, I didn't look at that, so I can't really say since I don't think my Bible here is going to tell me anything differently on that. Let's see. But I'll take a look anyway. I'll look at I got a couple of different versions. Whether or not it will help us or not is a different question. Okay, well this goes along with what Josh said and what you were saying. If I look in the Amplified Bible, in this instance of Shiloh, it's saying it refers to the Messiah, the peaceful one. So in this instance, it doesn't refer to the place. It's referring to the Lord. So. All right. Well, that was interesting. I should have looked at that closer previously. But nonetheless, all of these facts, why are these important facts? The fact that Jesse's from Bethlehem and they're in Judah, they're from Judah.
Christ was born in Bethlehem.
Right. Christ was born in Bethlehem. And of course, he's from Judah.
Bethlehem's called the city of David.
Bethlehem, yeah, it is called the city of David, though I guess at this time it probably wasn't, But yeah. All right. Well, I would say probably the only other thing would just be that this is where the rulers of the tribes are supposed to come from the tribe of Judah. Now, for whatever reason, King Saul was a Benjamite, and that was God's choice, so that's just the way it is. I'm not going to say anything else about that. That was his choice. But this verse from Genesis 49:10 basically tells us that it should be, the rulers should come from Judah. So, other than that, I think y'all covered everything. So
I think also we can see that God's showing that man is a free moral agent and he can choose. And he didn't make Saul the way he wanted him to be. He let him decide which is right and wrong, just like he did Adam.
Well, yeah, he told him what to do, and then he does that with all of us, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He tells us in the Bible what he wants us to do, how he wants us to be, but it's up to us to do it. And yeah. So if we look at question number 3, for what 2 reasons was Samuel sent to Bethlehem? Right. He was to offer sacrifice, and he was to find the king that God knew was there. He was to find and anoint the king. All right. So if we look at question 4 then, and it's going to refer us back to verse 2. In verse 2, was God instructing Samuel to lie? I didn't think he was either. No, because he was telling him what to do to give him a reason to go that would not be suspicious to Saul. Right? Because that is what he ended up doing also. Yes?
I just have this curious question. Like, he's going there to anoint a new king. Doesn't that, like, put suspicion in... Doesn't that word ever get out to King Saul that that actually happened? Through the grapevine? You know, like...
I would have thought so. But from what I can tell of what I've read and studied so far, I don't get an inclination that he was really tuned into that. Now, later he gets jealous of David because jealous is popular with the people and all these, he kills his tens of thousands, But,
it seems like that would have gotten out.
you would have thought so. And then the things that follow after that, but at some point, I guess he knows David is his replacement, but I haven't hit that yet, so I can't say. Yes?
In the previous chapter, chapter 15, Samuel tells him, because he has disobeyed God, he will lose his kingdom.
Yes, he's told he's going to lose the kingdom, yes.
Samuel has to kill Agag, because Saul didn't do it.
Yes. Yeah. He
He knew that his time was limited. His reigning time.
right, he's been told, well, first he was told that his kingdom was going to be limited, and then he was told that he's basically kaput, he's done. So yes. But that doesn't mean he knew that David was going to be his replacement, at least not at these times yet. So, yes.
I was thinking about this question number 4. Remember when Abraham sent his servant to his people to find a wife for Isaac? His servant didn't tell Rebekah everything right away, but he was not dishonest in that he needed water for his animal, because he did need water for his animal. But that wasn't the only reason he was in town, was looking for water for his animal.
Right. That's the second part of this question is, do you have to tell everything that you know? Do you have to tell everything just because you have that information to be truthful? And I see shaking of heads, and I know. So, no, you don't have to be. Sometimes something is none of anyone's business. Sometimes it can cause harm, like they mentioned here in this question, that the information that you give to someone could cause harm. Being truthful doesn't necessarily mean you have to dump everything you know on somebody. I don't know how else to say that, but and sometimes, again, like in Samuel's case here, well, he says, if Saul hears about it, he'll kill me. So he has good reason not to divulge everything. Does anybody else have anything on that? All right. Okay, so question number 5 then. Oh, and let's see, what did you say? Yeah, he actually did perform the sacrifice and did the consecration. So, really, he wasn't lying anyway. Because he actually did that. Okay. So, question number 5 then, what kind of man was God looking for?
I put down he was looking for someone that would carry out his commandments, which Saul did not do.
Right. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for somebody who will listen and obey. Again, this is like, we had a similar question. Number 1 was similar. But yes, definitely he was looking for someone who would listen and obey. Someone who was wanting to obey and listen to him. So how had Saul shown himself not to be such a man? He disobeyed, right? Yep. He disobeyed, and I think he had gotten a little full of himself, and he was a little, because from something Samuel had said about when he was smaller in his own eyes, when he thought less of himself, it's like he was better then when he was humbler. So he became, yes.
Back in chapter 13 and verse 14, Samuel tells Saul, "Now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and has appointed him ruler of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command."
Right. And he's searching, he was looking for someone after his own heart, right? But yeah, that's where he tells him, let's see, is this the one that was in 14? Oh, yeah, this is the first one where he tells him your kingdom shall not endure. Right. Right. I just wanted to make sure I had the right one. Because at that point, at that point, he had a chance, had he done correctly, to have a longer lasting kingdom. So Saul had shown himself basically by presumption and disobedience and rebellion that he had not shown himself to be the king that God was really looking for and that the people needed. So question number 6, how is verse 7 related to chapter 10, verse 23 and 24? Do I have that? I do have that here. So 1 Samuel chapter 10, verses 23 and 24. So they ran and brought him there, and when he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the people from his shoulders upward. And Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see him whom the Lord has chosen, that there is no one like him among all the people?" So all the people shouted and said, "Long live the king." So There they're going basically on the fact that he's just a very tall guy, right? That they think that means he's somehow better or special. So verse 7, though, what does verse 7 say? But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for the man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So that's basically our comparison, and it could be that Samuel thought that a taller guy was what, because Saul had been so tall, maybe he thought that that's what he was supposed to be looking for when he sees this other guy. What was his name? Is it Eliab? Because he was older and possibly, a bigger guy of the sons. I don't know. He was the firstborn, though. So they're just related in the way that it's explaining how God is not looking at the physical. And yet the people seem to be impressed that Saul was a very tall man. But he was not choosing based on physical stature or physical aspects of the person. So if we look at the next part of question 6, does this verse mean that the man of God's choice would necessarily not be handsome? And there they're going to refer us to 12, but that's okay. We know what that is.
Because God looks at the heart.
Right. So the guy could be handsome or not, right? Wouldn't make any difference. That's not what God was looking for.
He sees the inside. He doesn't see the outside.
Right.
Well, he sees the outside, but he doesn't consider it.
Right. He wasn't considering the outside. He was considering the heart of the person that he wanted anointed to be king. Right. And they just want to refer us to 12 because it does say that David was handsome, right? I forget what ruddy is, but it says he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And I saw other things that say it was handsome, and I've forgotten what ruddy is. So.
Some translations say healthy. It had to do with having some color in the skin and not being so pale in color that weakly or
having some color. Well, he was an outdoors person. I mean, think about it. So, yeah, I guess he would have some color and would look healthy and like a good, yeah, okay.
kind of robust.
Yeah, he would look robust and healthy and with vigor. Okay. That makes good sense.
David, is he the youngest of the brothers?
He is the youngest. He's the youngest of 8. And I don't think, well, we'll see as we move on. You know how it is with your little brother. You don't really think a lot about your little brother when you're all young. It's just, anyway, it's just one of those things. I had a little brother, so I know. Yes, Eileen.
So in verse 5, when Samuel arrives there, it says that the Lord sanctified yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons. I don't really know what consecrated means, but all of his sons must not have been there at that moment, because he asked later, are these all your sons?
I think everybody but David was there from what we read, because David was out with the sheep, with the flock.
I don't know why I don't know this, but what does consecrated mean?
Consecrated.
Set yourself apart.
Well, that's really sanctified, isn't it? But consecrated is a similar thing. I think it has to do, well,
With purity, so maybe they would have washed them.
it has to do with being
Ceremonially
clean to go to do the,
for worship.
Yes, thank you. That's the word. To do worship. And them, they were going to a sacrifice. So they had to prepare themselves to like be clean and be, like they wouldn't want to show up in an unclean state because that would be a very bad thing. I'm trying to think of the right. Yes, Pat, go ahead.
In Exodus 19:10 it says, "And the Lord said to Moses, Go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes."
Okay. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just forgot.
Okay, that's all right. I was gonna try to look it up real fast, but I'm pretty sure that what we're basically getting at here is they had to prepare themselves for the sacrifice. Yes, Jim, did you have something?
I looked up consecrated in the dictionary to see what the present use of it is. It said sacred or set apart, dedicated to the service or worship of a deity or for a spiritual or religious purpose.
Okay. So
Being set aside for God's service.
So it's still very similar to being sanctified then. It's still being... Okay. So being set apart, getting themselves ready to go to, do the sacrifice, to do worship. Anybody else have anything else? Does that answer you?
I'm a little
Yes.
confused about the sanctified.
Okay.
What is it they had to do to be sanctified? Because like in verse 5 it says that Jesse was sanctified by Samuel, and all his sons were sanctified. So what do you do to a person to sanctify them?
What he says here, now this is Samuel speaking, right? He says, sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. So that was to prepare themselves in whatever they needed to do. I don't know their condition or what they needed to do. For us, we're sanctified through the Lord, through the blood of Jesus, and we're also, because that sets us apart from the world, and that sets us apart to be God's. Yes, Pat?
In the verse before that, you see that the elders of the town had trembled at his coming. And so they were there, and so they were not part of that sacrifice. They were pulled aside, and that family were there for that sacrifice. The townspeople were not included, evidently. So now when they were sanctified, they were set apart.
Well, they were to set them. Yeah, they were to, prepare themselves, set themselves apart for worshiping the Lord, for worshiping God. Now, whether that meant they needed to wear certain clothing or bathe in some manner or what they needed to do, I'm not sure. It would vary. Yes.
When we read in the Psalms and Isaiah and different places, it talks about washing and making ourselves clean and
Right.
being purged, and in James 4 it talks about cleanse your hearts, double-minded, I think it says.
Right.
But the idea was to come before God with clean hands.
Yeah, the idea is to present yourself to God in a clean and good manner, not in...
And then when we come to the New Testament, there's more emphasis placed on our hearts being cleansed.
Right. But this was probably, like you're thinking, more physical, more outward appearance. So I don't think you were supposed to come and just show up like fresh out of the field or whatever you had been working at and doing all day.
If you sang that, then in turn, when David came in, he would not have been cleaned up, so to speak. He would have
Well-
done it in the field.
they sent and brought him in. They don't really elaborate. So
sometimes I don't think we get the whole.
Yeah.
Sometimes many things are left out. I think that we just have to.
Yeah, it's hard to say from that.
Something I don't know. I
Oh.
don't know.
But wasn't this after the sacrifice anyway? Yeah, this is after. Does it state clearly when he sacrificed? Because I don't see it here.
Well, it seems by verse 11, Samuel's a little frustrated because all of the ones that are
Yeah, see-
before him are not the ones.
Right, I think the sacrifice has already occurred by then, and because yes.
Verse 16 sheds some light on what the Lord is looking for, and he's not looking at it in the same way that we do or as they were.
Right.
But it says the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That's why, the rest were refused or not chosen because God knew the heart.
Right. Yeah, regardless of the particulars in the end, though, I mean, that's how it ends up being. He chooses David, and we don't know if, when they say that they sent and brought him in, we don't know how long that took. We don't know how far away David was. We don't know what occurred in that sentence anyway. They could have, if he needed to be cleaned up, that could have happened. Did you have something? No. So, anyway, we are really, I think I've gone over our time. So, I apologize for that. But I want to thank y'all for your time and interaction, and we'll pick up with this here next week.
I know that no one here thinks that they're perfect. I know that all of us, we are always working in our Christian walk of faith. We're always working on ourselves and what we should be doing. As we do that, sometimes the way that we're improving ourselves is by dropping a bad habit. Other times it's adding a good habit, right? So maybe you have been struggling to do daily reading and you've now added that daily reading. And so, you're in a better place spiritually. Maybe it's reaching out and encouraging one another, whatever the case may be. But as we improve upon ourselves, occasionally, and this happens to me, so I'm sure it happens to all of you, you get to a point where you think, okay, I'm doing a good job. I've just done another thing, but I'm not sure where to go from here. I know I'm not perfect, but I know I'm trying, and I'm not sure where to go next. And so with those thoughts in mind, I want to turn over to Thessalonians. Paul was writing 1 Thessalonians to the church in Thessalonica. If you read back in Acts chapter 17, you can see how when Paul visited, he spent some time with the brethren there, and he got run out of town by the Jews. And later he gets word from Timothy on how the Thessalonians are still doing a good job. And so that prompts him to write 1 Thessalonians to them. In 1 Thessalonians verses 2 and 3, it said, Paul speaking here says, "We always give thanks to God for all of you, making mention of you in our prayers, constantly keeping in mind your work of, notice here, of faith and labor of love and perseverance of hope in our Lord Jesus Christ in the presence of our God and Father." So the church at Thessalonica was doing a good job. Paul specifically calls out their work of faith, their labor of love, their perseverance of hope. 3 key things for Christians. So they were doing a good job. They were working on themselves. They were doing a good job. And Paul goes on to compliment them on these things. But just because they were doing a good job doesn't mean that they were doing a good enough job, right? There's always room for growth. Because we see that after Paul goes on a little bit and praises them for their good works, if you go over to 1 Thessalonians Chapter 4, he encourages them to excel even more. And that's what we want to try to do each and every day. Even when we're doing a good job, we want to continue to excel, right? Paul says in 1 Thessalonians Chapter 4, in verse 1, actually at the end of verse 1, he says, you ought to walk and please God, just as you actually do walk, that you excel even more. So this is where he's saying, keep at it, keep growing. Don't be complacent with what you've done so far, but keep going. And Paul's not calling them out on hubris here. He's not saying that they've been arrogant, thinking like, oh, well, we're perfect, we're doing a good job. He's not saying that. He's just saying, you guys are doing really great. Now keep going further. Keep doing more. I know you have it in you, right? And that's what we all need to hear today, because all of us get to the same spot that those in Thessalonica did, where we're doing a good job, but we know we can do more. But now what can we do more, right? That's really key. What can we do more? Well, Paul hits on a couple things here in 1 Thessalonians Chapter 4, and you can read all of that, and I encourage you to read all of that when you get the chance. But I specifically would like to look at verses 9 through 11, okay? Verses 9 through 11, Paul says, now as to the love of the brothers and sisters, you have no need for anyone to write for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. For indeed you practice it toward all the brothers and sisters who are in Macedonia, right? Paul's saying you all love each other. You're showing Christian love to one another, right? And we know that the whole law and all the prophets, it hinges on our love for God and our love for each other. And he says, but we urge you, brothers and sisters, to excel even more. There's that phrase again. And in verse 11, he gives us a little bit insight. He says, and to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life and attend to your own business with the work of your hands, just as we instructed you, so that you will behave properly towards outsiders and not be in any need. Now, Paul gives a lot of great advice through the rest of the chapter in chapter 4, and he goes on even further into chapter 5 with some other really good tidbits on how we can grow. But this one particular one struck out to me in verse 11, where he's, right after he encourages them to love one another even more, he says, to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, to attend to your own work with your hands as we instructed you. Americans are a very ambitious people, right? It's part of the way that our country was formed. It's part of who we are. We're always taught as little kids to shoot for the stars. Quite literally, if you ever dream to be an astronaut, right? We're always told to be ambitious, to grasp for more. But here, Paul kind of puts it in a different spin. He says, make your ambition a quiet life. A quiet life. That's kind of interesting. That's not something that Americans usually go for. You know, we want to be stars. We want to be famous. We want to be well known. We want all people to know our names. We want to be big, right? We do everything big. But Paul says to live a quiet life. And he says to attend your own business, right? And by that, he means not just our home life and our regular work that we do, but he says, just as we instructed you. He's also talking about the work of the church. Attend to your own business. Attend to the business that God wants you to do, which is encouraging one another, loving each other, encouraging one another to grow more. And he goes on to show that this will lead to us being properly behaved towards outsiders, and we won't be in any need. So if we're attending to our own business, our own congregation here, we're striving, we're paying close attention to one another, we'll be able to welcome other people in. There won't be any who are needy here. We'll be in an even better place. We will have excelled even more. Now, certainly that's not the only way that we can continue to grow. This is just one thing that I thought I could bring to your attention. If you are looking for a way to continue to excel even more, I think Paul's words here in verse 11 are one that we can reflect on and see how we can apply it in our own lives, to be able to lead that quiet life, to focus on our business here at this congregation, which is God's will, and to continue to excel even more in the things we're already doing good, loving one another, our work of faith, our perseverance of hope in Jesus Christ. I hope those words have been encouraging for all of you tonight. As we're about to stand and sing this song of invitation, I'd encourage you, if there's something that is holding you back, maybe you need a little bit more encouragement than just that tonight. We all certainly hit hurdles and obstacles in our lives, and we just need the help of one another. And Paul encourages us to be able to attend to that business for one another. So if there's anything that you need, let it be known. Come have a seat on the front while we stand and sing.